Thank you, Rebecca. And finally, last but not least, we have Tristan Pearce, who is a PhD candidate and a SSHRC Vanier Scholar with the Global Environmental Change Group in the Department of Geography here at the University of Guelph. And his research focuses on the integration of social, physical, and health sciences with local traditional knowledge in climate change vulnerability and adaptation research. This interdisciplinary and applied research has been undertaken throughout Northern Canada and in partnership with First Nations and Inuit communities, NGOs, governments, and industry.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for coming on Saturday morning, and thank you to Phil for convincing me to get up on Saturday morning. It's kind of fun. This is a fun topic to discuss, and yeah, it's an impressive group of people to be working with. So, as it was introduced, I work on issues of, well, global environmental change, specifically climate change, and looking at how those physical changes in the environment translate to affect people. So, rather than talking, because well, that's one way to do it, I thought I'd draw you a diagram of this. Now, when we address an issue like, well, let's take climate change. That's the one that I know well. Usually what we do is we end up in these individual specializations. And we talked about that before. We have like an engineer over here who's maybe, you know, we could be looking just at water. So they're looking at, you know, water resource management. And they hang out in their individual specialization. And then we have another nut kind of over here. And maybe this guy's looking just at temperature change. And then maybe we have another over here that's looking at, well, in the context of the Arctic, maybe it's just permafrost. They're only specifically interested in measuring and evaluating permafrost in a defined area. And you might get another person up here, they're interested in policy. And maybe we'll get a feeder person over here that's going to operationalize this and make it accessible to the public. So when we're usually addressing something of a global concern on a broad scale, we end up in all these little individual specializations, very focused. And I guess sometimes we call them departments because they even physically hang out together and they have lunch together. But every once in a while what you do is you get some innovation within those departments. So you might get the engineer saying, you know what, for me to be able to really get an idea of how this water system works, I'm going to have to link up with the climatologist. And maybe this climatologist says, you know, well, that's great. Maybe I need to extend an arm and have lunch with that person down here that's looking at another individual aspect of the project. And what we start to see is even within each of these individual specializations, we see some development going where maybe the climatologist is starting to say, you know, maybe we won't just look at climate projections, but we're also going to look at different aspects. So we get some broadening out. And these disciplines start to go beyond their boundaries. You might even extend a little bit. You know, you might extend a little bit and say, I'm going to try and dabble in another discipline. Maybe I'll go take a class. Maybe, you know, you might extend out and you might find that you're getting a little bit more of a broader aspect of the project. And then what we see is, for example, in geography, you might be over here in geography that's just looking at permafrost, but all of a sudden in geography you have people looking at aeolian processes, fluid dynamics, policy, and you start to see that discipline broaden out even a little bit more, so they're starting to extend beyond their individual specialization. And the same thing probably happens in engineering. Like you probably have people that are looking at a lot of different aspects of engineering. It's not just going to be that one specialization. And then what we see in a lot of these cases is people making the effort. You know, UBC starts a whole program called Interdisciplinary Studies. So you're starting to get a lot of these connections, and you know, they're going all over the place. They're coming down here, and they say, we're going to link here. And we're saying, yeah, we'll do something innovative and come out here. And you start to get a lot of different communications going on. And now you have this interdisciplinary picture here. Now, the nuts are still very important. You still need these areas of expertise. But what becomes important as well are these communication networks and connections that are drawn between them. And now what I'd also say is in order to make interdisciplinary research truly operationalized, you need, well, I'm just going to kind of have to be a little person here. You know, you need this guy here who's going to operationalize this and really ride the interdisciplinary. Give him some hair. individual or body that's going to operationalize the interdisciplinary network. Now, in the case of climate change or climate change policy, you need to bring together all these individual specializations to bring light to the broader issue, to understand that issue, and specifically if we're going to develop an adaptation plan and look at how people adapt, we need to take all this and then we need to translate it to this guy who's then going to operationalize it and put it into policy or institutions or decision making to actually make this practical. Now, something, especially if you go to hard science, the guys that measure things and take the rulers. You ever heard of the term hard science? Yeah. So when you get hard science, they'll look at this and they go, this is crap. You know, you guys are becoming obsolete. You're becoming, I've heard this a lot. You know, a jack of all trades. What is it? Jack of all trades. Master of none. Yeah, and who wants to be a master of none? Master of none. Like, I'd rather be a McMaster. So, jack of all trades, master of none. And you'll go to these massive climate conferences and they'll say, you know what, we focus on permafrost. That's what we do. And we need to focus just on that in order to be the best we possibly can in our discipline. So their argument is that if we do this interdisciplinary approach, you have a jack of all trades, you know, you dabble in everything and a master of none. And everyone's ridden a hybrid bike. It's not as good as a mountain bike or kind of in between. But what I would argue is that rather than a jack of all trades, master of none, that maybe we should become a mistress of the broad of the big picture. So while we can all remain within our disciplines, and that's great, you can still have lunch with your friends here, and you can still do a great job at advancing this specialization, you should also dabble with the big picture so that we can actually contribute something to solving some of these global issues. This is, I think it's like the second day that I was like, well, Dr. Barry Smith, you know, he'll push you right on interdisciplinary and hard science versus soft science. So this is part of his mantra. So credit goes to him.
Well, those were some very interesting talks to be starting us off with. We don't have tons of time, we have about half an hour, so I think we'll leave you for about 10 minutes if you folks have comments to make on one another's presentations. Perhaps you do. If anybody does, I mean, just a hand.
That was a whole bunch of different people. I really enjoyed the range of stuff we've got going on. And I think starting with a quote, because that really tied us back to the fact that people think about this so much.